Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all the news from Star Citizen from the week just past. I am your host Mac, so let's get on with it. This week we get the latest on 3.5 patch and its release. We're introduced to the Drake Corsair, plus Aegis have a big announcement. What could it be? So before we begin, I will give you the latest on 3.5. As you've probably heard, 3.5 is no longer just in the Evocot's hands. Testing has gone out to Wave 1 of the PTU group. This is just generally the concierge and subscribers plus a few others. But the current situation with 3.5 is that Area 18 is practically a no-go area. The air traffic controller system isn't functioning, so you can't land there. And with the new heat system as well being the testing focus, ship engines overheat way quicker than they are supposed to. This means that if you don't have access, you're really not missing too much just yet. And I do expect come Monday, they will have a patch to fix the ATC and retune the heat. If you are playing the PTU, do remember that this is a public test universe for a reason. I'm seeing many people in chat complaining that it's unplayable and the ships are overheating way too fast. And in the words of Chris Roberts, yeah, no shit. So with that in mind, do approach it with the intention of reporting any issues outside of the known bugs to the issue council to help get it to the wider audience and out to live as fast as possible. The purpose of this PTU is to tune, to balance and to test, finding bugs, reporting bugs, fixing bugs. It is not supposed to be an enjoyable experience. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it's a bit of a mess. This is there to help speed up the testing phase. Throughout next week I would expect to see lots of more patches coming out, fixing and rebalancing things, plus opening the patch 2 more waves, with Friday likely being open to all for the PTU. We have 1 week of testing. It should be enough to sort out what I've seen. On another note, the flight model is the first implementation of the new system, so it will take time to get used to and readjust and change things. Do not expect it to feel intuitive straight away, and make sure that you set some time aside to just bind your keys, play around with it, get a feeling for it. Using a HOTAS throttle is probably not worth it at the moment, but I would expect CIG to address this problem later down the line. I currently use keyboard and joystick. That seems to work for me. But that is the current situation with 3.5. Do let me know what your thoughts are on it so far, and let's get on with the show. So this week's Around the Verse kicked off looking at the Corsair. I won't go into too much detail right now, as we do have a feature on it later on in the show. ATV also looked at the Area 18 lighting, and we saw how Area 18 looks without lights and holograms. Looks pretty dead and awful. But they begun with adding the fizz and the lighting to this hero advertisement, giving some dynamic lights, shadow casting lights and plain lights as well. They added lots of various warm ombre colours to the signage, plus lots of bright lighting just to sort of give it more of a kick. It does help to separate the foreground and the background, plus establish where each individual building stops and starts. They then add fog for atmosphere and reflections with puddles, and I must say Area 18 is looking very cool. We also saw food props, so kiosks and props dotted around Area 18. Lots of concepts for food stalls and creating them using real life references. Each asset is made up of a base, a roof and dressing, all swappable to help with variety. They went for warm lighting assets to give more of an Asian feel. Then they went with LEDs on the menus for the hot dog stands just to make it a little more Americanized. They need to work on some LODs for them and add a little more detail like food and dirt and so forth. But this will also complement the NPCs as they walk around and use these items, just making the environment feel like it's lived in and it looks like things are going on. Anyway, to finish off in ATV, they did say that the Origin 300 base variant will be released with 3.5, but all the other variants, so the 315P, 325A and 350R, are not quite ready, so they will come out just after the 3.5 release. Think along the lines of 3.5.1 or 0.2. Not 3.6. It's going to be in the 3.5 branch. This will also bring some customization updates, I believe, with just the 300 series, allowing you to swap paints and other things. If you own a variant of the 300, you will get the 300i as a loaner. This, I think, is good. I'm happy that they pushed out the 300, and I'm glad that they don't knock back the other variants instead of just releasing them as they are doing in an interim patch. Much better way of doing it, letting us know before they change the roadmap, and also explaining what's going on. Anyway, a short and sweet ATV, let's get on looking at the Corsair. So the latest concept ship was revealed. It is the last of the You Pick the Next Drake ship series. and it is the Drake Corsair. This is Drake's answer to the Constellation. Think along the lines of the Aquila. The Corsair can do exploration, it can haul cargo or hold a rover. The stats are 55 meters in length, 27 meters wide, and 31 meters high, with 72 standard cargo units and a crew up to 4. Now it's well kitted out. It has 2 size 4 wing mounts, 4 size 5 mounts facing forwards, 2 turrets with 2 size 2 guns facing either side, and 1 size 2 remote turret facing the rear. It also has 4 size 4 missile racks, each capable of holding 2 size 3 missiles. All components are medium sized, and the interior has a cargo bay accessed via a ramp. You can park a rover in there, it doesn't come with one, or you can have cargo, you can't have both. It leads to a dedicated component and storage room, then into crew hubs with rooms for 3 people, a table, a toilet and food station. The cockpit has a bed for the pilot, and it also has 2 seats where one folds underneath for better visibility. Buying one also allows you to reserve a name for it, more on that later in the show. But for pricing, it is $215 plus VAT, which is about $160 for the ship, LTI and the industrial hangar. For $570 or 430 quid plus VAT, you get the ship, LTI, the hangar, the Vulture, the Cutlass, the Dragonfly and the Buccaneer. And then for $2,775 or 2,100 quid, you get the ship, LTI, industrial hangar, and every Drake ship, including all the variants. Like I say, it doesn't come with a Drake rover, but that doesn't mean that we won't get a Drake rover later on down the line. Do remember though that you don't need to buy this ship with real life cash. You will be able to earn currency in-game and buy it or rent it once it's implemented and once those mechanics are in as well. There is a reverse the verse coming up which talks more about the Corsair and answers many questions that you may have. Personally, I think it's a very cool ship. I do prefer it more to the Constellation and will likely own one day. It'll be interesting to see it up against the Constellation in combat, but don't forget, being better at combat doesn't necessarily mean it's a better ship, as it has many other roles and uses. So Reverse the Verse this week was specifically on the Drake Corsair. First question being, why choose this over the Constellation? One obvious answer is you just prefer Drake to RSI. It does fill the same role as a Connie, so it's a small crew explorer with the ability for cargo to carry a vehicle. The decision really just boils down to, do you want more missiles or more turrets, more guns, with trade-offs being that the Corsair is also slightly more fragile. Now another trade-off is that it doesn't come with a rover, nor does it come with a snub fighter like the Constellation does. You should be able to fit an Ursa rover, a Gravlev, all the Gravlev vehicles in it, as well as potentially a Cyclone. That'll be something we'll have to try out ourselves, but the Cyclone and the Ursas are very similar in size. One of the questions was, what makes a Drake ship? Now, it's kind of a lot more stripped back in terms of style, whereas Origin is very sort of top of the list in terms of sleekness. Drake is at the bottom. Not necessarily ugly, just different in style for different people. The interiors are more exposed, and you can see the inner workings looking rough and ready. Now, the original design influences, they were looking more for a Super Cutlass style ship, but Chris Roberts didn't want that. He wanted more of an asymmetrical style, and he actually suggested maybe a Corsair sailing style ship with fins, and they did actually look and explore the solar sail route at one point, but they ended up where they did now. We'll probably see some concepts like that in the subscriber vault later on. Now, when it comes to atmospheric flight, the ship may be asymmetrical, but much of the other aspects of the ship are symmetrical. Only the wings really make that difference, and they won't throw you off enough in atmosphere. The engines will allow you to fly properly. Even if the wings go, the thrusters will still remain, so it will remain airborne, which is handy. One of the questions was, what's the multi-crew gameplay like? And they say it's kind of like just friends having fun. You can obviously hire an NPC crew, of course, but having a pilot and then 2 gunners, or if those gunners aren't using the turrets, they can be scanning or doing the engineering. It's designed to stay away from base for a long time, so it has room for a lot of supplies, repairing on the fly if you need to. It's a 1 to 4 person ship on a medium-term expedition. It has living quarters, it's got room for supplies, for spares, it's got a mess hall. Not as long-term as a Carrack, but not short-term like the Terrapin. In terms of defense, it's not as durable as its competitors, but it has got more guns. They did say the wings are likely to be the areas that come off first, but as I've said before, it won't stop it flying. You're supposed to use the turrets for defense, so teamwork is key, but you can always turn them into auto turrets with the use of a computer blade. Now, the turrets on the side are recessed in, so it's more about protecting each side. They can't face forward, but all the turrets can have blades to make them automated, but there may not be enough slots to have all of them at once automated. So although you can slave 1 to maybe 2 of them to auto turrets, the likelihood is you won't be able to do all of them at once and then still have other aspects of the ship working. Now when it comes to the design of it with sharing ship assets, it does use a lot of caterpillar structures. The Drake aesthetic, they say, is still kind of in its early days and it is coming along, but before the ship goes into actual production, they will likely do a small pass to add any new updates of the Drake assets. The majority of its components are held in the component room. It's not been fully spec'd out yet, but you can see it's kind of like an open server rack, very basic with little rooms off for additional storage. They also will have a venting system for potential smuggling places. They didn't have time to put it in, but there will be vents, maybe underneath the flooring or in the ceiling where you can hide things. The captain has their own quarters, like a bed per person with a toilet, a shower, sink combo, food machines, dining area, and monitors, which they did say one day there may be games built in, but there's nothing more like pool tables or anything fancy. It is the bare bones. Something that I would like to see is if the Caterpillar may get these habitation rooms rather than having bunk beds. I would like that. And also maybe the engineering rooms of the Caterpillar may change due to the style of the Corsair. If they're saying that Drake aesthetic is still quite adolescent, then the Caterpillar may need a little revamp. They didn't say that, I'm just hoping for that. On the single wing, there is a pointy thing right at the end. What is it? They say it's not a gun, it's mainly just a visual element to balance the ship's aesthetic. They're not sure if it will someday become something, but at the current standing, nothing is intended. In the brochure, it says about a state-of-the-art scanning suite. Now, this just means that the component you get for scanning is better than what you would generally get by default. It's better quality and abilities, and as scanning gets more robust each patch that comes out, it'll probably play more of a part. It doesn't have a docking collar. There is no other plans for variants. Paint schemes, yes, but no variant ships. And there's nothing modular about it outside of your usual components and so forth. Anyway, that was the Q&A for the Drake Corsair. They will likely do a proper Q&A as well later down the line. Most likely taking questions from the backers, from us lot, because this wasn't taken from the backers, because nobody knew about this until they released it, and this was a pre-recorded RTV. Anyway, do let me know your thoughts, guys. So also this week there was a Congress Now post titled Crusader Cares, which looks into the lack of safety surrounding Crusader. There was a sneaky hint towards some big announcement regarding Aegis. This was in the emails we all got for the concierge, I believe, along with an image that John Crew posted on Twitter maybe a couple of months ago, stating that there is a space missing from their capital ship display cabinet. There are thoughts about a potential new Aegis capital ship. I don't know, we do kind of have a few, so I'd like to know what you think, guys. What do you think this Aegis big announcement is? And finally, there is a linked post below to an FAQ regarding the naming of ships and what the reservation allows. This is in line with the Drake Corsair, obviously. Very interesting and useful info. I don't know if this means that we'll get the ability to name our ships anytime soon, considering the scanning mechanic is getting improved and updated all the time. Potentially, I've got to start thinking about ship names. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a video. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and share the video with all your friends. If you like what I do and want to help me make it better, follow the link below to my Patreon page to learn more.